Thank you, Mr. Ramatowski. I think I'll start with you. The question I was asking of the last panel, based on Secretary Chertoff's comment about how important this visa waiver program really is in terms of our outreach to certainly Eastern European countries. In light of that, are there any requirements within the program for qualification that are either too high or too low? I mean, in other words, are the requirements, are the hurdles set at an appropriate level?
Mr. Chairman, I think some of the countries that wish to join the program might say that the statutory requirement for a 3% visa refusal rate is their most difficult hurdle to cross, because that's one thing that they can't directly affect through their own actions. When we are interviewing applicants for U.S. visas, we make our decision on a case-by-case basis on that applicant's individual circumstances. And it's the aggregate of those decisions that determine the overall visa refusal rate. And current law requires a rate of 3% or less to join the program, and that's a difficult hurdle for some countries to meet.
So I understand that those countries have a problem with it. Does the State Department or does this administration think that maybe is too high a hurdle? And should that be potentially revisited?
In the past, the administration has endorsed proposals made in Congress to consider a 10% refusal rate, and in the past the rate has been at 10% for a period of time. And so the Department of State would support those efforts.
Okay, well, thank you. We did have a couple of suggestions in terms of potential legislative initiatives to help strengthen the program. One by Secretary Chertoff talked about maybe we could increase the requirements for information intelligence sharing. Mr. Kroomans, would you agree with that? Would that help strengthen the Department's hands in trying to negotiate better compliance?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that we actually have a pretty robust system in place with respect to that kind of information sharing, and I just want to emphasize, you know, and in preparation for this hearing and collaboration with our interagency partners, 5,500 information about 5,500 known and suspected terrorists have been provided to us by our visa waiver program partners already. But so those agreements are in place. Those agreements are working. I mean, I think what was discussed in the first panel was also their own abilities, and we're working with them to improve some of their abilities. And I think that is something we want to continue to focus on as part of that partnership that we have with them. Now, they know more about their citizens than we do. And so that is something that we continue to work on to improve. I'm not saying that it's perfect, but I think in the agreements that we have in place in that area, I think are quite strong. And as they build their systems, the PNR that was talked about in the previous panel, I think they'll be in an even stronger position to share lessons learned, knowledge about the kinds of travel patterns that they're seeing, and of course, the particular suspicious and criminal and terrorist individuals that they're encountering and preventing from traveling.
Now, it is the Department that is charged with doing these every 2-year audits, correct? Not the
Yes,
State
Mr.
Department?
Chairman. Yes, sir.
Again, having come from the business world with the ISO certification with 6-month surveillance audits, that was one of the questions I asked the last panel. Is that something that you think would be helpful? To, again, not a full-blown audit, but just a skinny down with the fewer personnel, just checking in on a surveillance basis on a more frequent basis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just so that it's clear about what we do. What we do now, when we say we make the biennial assessments, we already have the capability, and there's one country that I won't name that is under a provisional status. So they're getting more frequent reviews. We already have that capability to do more frequent reviews and do that when it's warranted. And it's important to mention that these biennial reviews, because in many cases, in most countries, it is every 2 years. It is not as if we do the 2-year review and then don't look at them. The reviews take from 6 to 9 months. It's a pretty intensive period of information collection from our interagency partners and working with the host government, working with the embassy there overseas, learning from other agencies how they are cooperating with their counterparts, and then compiling the data, vetting it, checking it, and then writing the reports. that's a pretty intensive period. But then in that year and a half, when we're not in the active cycle, they're still subject to continuous monitoring. On a daily basis, we're hearing the statistics daily, weekly, monthly basis from CBP. What is CBP's experience with respect to people arriving at the port of entry? Are we starting to turn around a larger number of them? We would see an uptick there. Or from ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, are they starting to see any issues with removal of people? Because BWP countries are required to accept the return of their citizens. From Interpol, the lost and stolen passport database, are there any problems? Are these countries still reporting as they're supposed to on a regular basis, many, 20, 30 times a month?
So you're saying there's really continuous monitoring
There's
already?
continuous monitoring.
Okay, well, that's comforting. Senator Booker was talking about the exit system, and the response was, we don't have the money. Have there been cost estimates on kind of a layered basis, maybe biometrics exit system for airline travel? I mean, does the department have any of those estimates prepared, or is that something that you'll have to work up?
I may turn to my colleague on specific estimates, but I might just want to mention one thing to highlight, because it was discussed in that previous panel. We do have currently an operation with Canada, so that a land entry into Canada from the United States counts as an exit from the United States. 2.5 million records we've already gotten in this project. Now, and we'd like to do the same with Mexico, a little bit more of a challenge there, but to have that capability with Canada has been very valuable in order to help us get a better understanding of those leaving the country.
Okay, I was looking for costs. Ms. Dugan.
Chairman, there have been costs associated. I think the issue is that the idea of what the solution would look like is really something that we're testing. So what is feasible without causing a great deal of difficulty on the departure. So we're very excited about a number of pilots that we're going to be running this year with regard to biometrics. And in this spring, we're going to have a pilot program in Otay Mesa with a biometric exit and the pedestrian environment. We're also running a biometric mobile pilot in Atlanta this spring, and a facial recognition pilot in Dulles starting in April. So we have a number of environments where we'd like to test possible solutions and where we can go that's going to be feasible and still facilitating for the traveling public. We have a test facility in Landover, Maryland, that we, in partnership, are working with the Science and Technology Group. And it's very exciting, as the panelists mentioned, that there's so many changes with biometrics. I think that solution is viable. We're just looking for what is feasible, and it may not be the same solution across all environments.
Okay.
So,
again, the other panel said the problem was a cost problem, and I realize that with technology those costs should be declining. But again, just to simply, have there been cost estimates? Is the department aware of that? Is that something that has to be developed? I realize you're testing different systems, but are there cost estimates? Just give us some kind of ballpark what we're talking about here in terms of appropriations.
well, the reason the resources have been, resource implication has been high is really with regard to the officer involvement. So when we did tests several years ago, the requirement would be to increase the number of officers that would have to be doing those outbound inspections.
Really, it's just, are there cost estimates or not that we can get from the department? Or is that something, just real quick answer, just yes or no, I want to move on.
Mr. Chairman, I'm more than happy to take that question and
Okay. Do it for the
answer
record,
you.
thanks.
Yep.
Senator Carper.